Hi, this is Vishasar. I'm doing a quick tutorial in 3ds Max Studio. This was by request. I'm going to say right now, I am not a teacher. I am not good at giving tutorials. I may go fast, I may skip over information. But this is just a little basic thing someone requested they needed help with. This involves manually mapping your UVWs. So your texture field is laid out how you want it laid out for your final texturing, which it seems like kind of a weird thing. It's not. I mean, there are times when you want to designate specifically how a texture is going to lay out on the map. And this one was one that someone wants a specific layout. So what I'm going to do is go over here and go to hidden line first. And you can see what the polygon edges look like, and then you can see where the vertices are, where the polygons meet up. Now this mesh is really good as far as easy seams to work with. Typically though, you're going to get some bad seams, and then it's going to be a mess if you're making stuff by hand, especially if you use Garment Maker in 3ds. It becomes a disaster real quick. But this is nice. You can see there's a nice clean seam that goes all the way down the center, which is going to make this really easy. Now what I'm doing is, a question was asked on how to make this two separate fields basically a mirror. Right now, and hopefully it shows up. Okay, so first of all, let's explain how you get to the UVW. I'm going to delete this and show you from start. You're going to click on your mesh. Oops, click up here on mesh. Under your modifier list, you go down to unwrap UVW. You see now you've got your unwrap UVW. You come down here. This is all your menu options for UVW. First thing I want to point out. Okay, so here's the seams that came with this. These seams were generated in Blender. So the individual who made this didn't map his own seams, and now he's wants to learn how to map his own seams. So that's the purpose of this. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is come down here, because we want to do new seams. We're going to untick map seams, and now you see those seams that came from Blender, those are gone. And now we're going to remap them to how we want them to be. So essentially we want this half of the head and this half of the head. If you open the UV editor, you're going to see this is what the map looks like so far. Best thing to do, first of all, is select Polygon, which is this pink square here, and then select by UV element, element UV toggle. Click both of those. Here you can select that whole field. So what we have is two halves of the head pasted on top of each other, which honestly is ideal when you're doing any kind of a mesh. So good on Blender for doing that. You'll see, oh, I should have done it for, okay, the eyebrows are just laid out on top of each other. So if you just select it all, you see there's both eyebrows. This is, what am I selecting here? Okay, the back of the ears. This should be the front of the ears. Yeah, there's the front of the ears. What's this little guy? Okay, that is both sides of his bottom mouth. Bottom lip, bottom mouth, I don't know what you call it. Bottom snout. Here's the top of his snout, and this should be both eyes. Yeah, so both eyes are highlighted there. So as this map sits right now, this is ideal, especially if you're doing an outfit that you need symmetry for your textures on. This is perfect. I personally wouldn't touch this, but the purpose of this tutorial is because somebody wants to touch it. So right now, you can't do anything with it to change it in the UV editor. You know, I can grab this, move it. It's going to grab both parts of the head. I cannot separate it. Now, I didn't try this, but you might be able to detach it. Oh, no. You don't want to do that. That's a bad option. Bad option. Okay. So, we're going to manually map the seams. So, coming over to this field and selecting polygon, you come all the way down and you're going to see this peel section. You have two tools for your seams. This tool right here, you have to click on the polygon edge and it starts mapping just one by one. This probably takes the longest, but sometimes you need to use it. This one right here is, come on, show me the name, point-to-point seams. So instead of clicking on the edges, you're going to click where there would be a vertex. You see there's this dotted line. It shows you which direction you're going. And you go from point to point, which is vertex to vertex. And see, sometimes it doesn't work. 3DS wants to make its own direction. So for this section, we really need that tool. Oh, sorry, new mouse. It's ultra sensitive. I don't like it yet. I'm going to get used to it. Okay, so I'm going back to point to point. Ah, this worked earlier. Okay. So you can go to a larger point now. There we go. This one takes the least amount of time to do because you can cover a larger field, but, and I know it's going to happen right here, like I said, 3DS will try and indicate its own path. So we're going to Control Z, switch back to this little guy, and select these individual lines. Oh, mouse. Okay. Let's select a couple more because I know this is the area where it's going to try. This mouse. Okay. Let's select those out. Let's turn them around. And we're going to go back to point. Come on. Okay, see if we can do it down here. There we go. Good. All right. No? Not going to get there. We go. I'm just going around the full body of this piece of the mesh. So it's just the head, not the actual face parts. No, it doesn't want to select there. So when it doesn't want to select, you have to go in with the other tool and select it line by line, which happens a lot. Oh, I wish my old mouse hadn't broke. Breaking in a new mouse is like breaking in a new pair of shoes. It's painful at first. Ah! Come on. Let's get closer and then flip it. Okay. Try point to point again. Okay. Ah! Okay, it's not going to do it there. Oh, okay, I went too far. Okay. So now that's the head. Split in half. Okay, so you click off of these dotted lines. Next thing you want to do, oops, is you make sure you have this tool selected. Come back down. You're going to select a polygon on one of those sides. This tool right here expands polygon selection to seams. So when you click it, you see what half you mapped out. Now if you click on that and then the whole thing turns pink, that means somewhere you missed a line that needed to be selected to actually make that a separate piece. So you have to go back and hunt for those lines. But like I said, this mesh was really easy one to do because it's got this nice seam down the center. Makes it really easy to map the seam. Okay, so we need to go back to our UV editor over here. See, now I have this side selected, but I selected this and this isn't highlighted. Well, this is now laying on top of this side. It's now seeing it as two separate things, but it's not done yet because I'm going to pull on this, and where the seams are welded, you can see I'm getting some seams. This are sewing springs actually. So in order to correct that, Control Z first of all. Come over here to detach, which is under your peel menu in the UV editor. This center one is peel mode. You're going to see it turn purple. At that point, you can click on it and move it away. And here it is unwelded those seams for the UV map. Not on the mesh itself, just for the UV. You want to click on peel mode again, get it back to, oh, what this clicked off to. Why are you doing this? You didn't do this before. 1 second. Let's go back a few steps, see what's going on here. Okay. Now it's working. That was a little glitch. Okay. So now you have two halves of the head, and they're facing in the same direction. So if I click on this, you'll see it's that half of the head. Now, if you wanted these to mirror, obviously one of them has to be flipped. So this right here is this side. It's kind of in the wrong direction. We need it the opposite of this one. This is your right side of the head. That's the right side of the head. This is the left side. So first thing you do is grab that side that's wrong. This is your mirror tool. Just click it and flip it. Drag this over here so I can see what I'm doing. Okay, now what I want to do is get these lined up as best as possible here. I'm going to select them both and then drag them back over onto the checker. Now we need to know, did we do the right thing before we start mapping? Yeah, mapping is the word I want. So I'm going to go to realistic. Now, right now everything's in pink, but you want to see how your texture is going to lay out before you actually get to the texturing process. You can actually do a preview of how a texture is going to lay, so you can see if things are going to be stretched, warped, broken, whatever. Now you see the background of your UV map itself has these checkers. That's what you use as your base. You have to make sure this is selected up here. You come over to this drop down menu. Even though it says checker pattern checker is selected, you still have to hit it again to enable this. So here we go. If I leave this the way it is, this is how this pattern will lay out in when you start to texture. Now as you see, you have some size differences here going back, which isn't horrible, but it's not ideal. And then you have this seam right here where you see a lot of difference in size. So when you go to texture, that could be a little bit of a problem. You have these curves here, which I actually tested this out before I started doing the video. There weren't too many options to fix that. That has to do with how the original mesh was made. It's curves right there. And the UV maps are picking up on that. You can see where the natural seams are. I mean, sometimes you can't get around that, but we're going to try our best. Okay. So, what I need to do next, we could leave it this way, but like I said, you can give yourself some problems with the textures later on. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to go back to using this tool. So select a polygon, expand it. The option I found was best for this mesh was the pelt tool. So I'm going to show the worst options first. Over here is, it's quick peel. The name kind of says it all. It's quick. It doesn't mean it's the best. Sometimes it is the best. Sometimes it's not. So I'm going to quick peel and you see the shape changed. And this is what happens with the quick peel. You start to see things curving more like this. It's curving, which isn't bad. I mean, it would probably do okay for the texture. You still have the size difference, which, you know, it's kind of a... I wouldn't work with it. You know, unless I absolutely had no better option, I would not choose this. So we're going to come back over here, Control Z, Control Z. Okay. Did it even quick peel? Yeah, it did. Okay, it just didn't do much. Okay. Okay, our second option. Let me hit save first, just in case anything crashes. This 3DS crashes a lot because it's a resource hog. And this is an old computer. Okay, up here is your mapping options. These are some other ones. There's flatten mapping, which is by far the worst, but always the most recommended. I don't understand it. It's the worst mapping method, but always said to be the best. It's not. This is what happens when you flatten map. It basically makes a puzzle, and then you have to put that puzzle together. But there's no guarantee when you put that puzzle together that it's going to look good. So as you see, oh, it's not even doing it now. Well, that's okay because we're not going to use it. This can actually give you the worst UVs later on. I was going to do a demo with it, but it doesn't seem to want to. Let's try this one. Flatten that. Let's test it out real quick. Okay, this one did it. Okay, so that's selected again. Pull it over here. This is your flatten map. So basically, you click on a piece, you see these blue lines appear on other pieces. That means this piece right here, those two lines, have seams on here somewhere. So if you click on just that, you'll see those seams are right there. That's where they'd match up. Now if you hit Control and select the other one, you select both of them, you go over here to Stitch Custom, and it puts them together. Now sometimes this is the best option for mapping. Select this section. I'll show you maybe it'll show me what section on here it is. There we go. Okay, so it's not bad, but I can already see that there is warping with this one. And you don't want warping at all, especially on a head. It's going to be seen. So I'm going to Control Z until I get it back to the original map. There it went. Okay. So, third option. And we just ignore unfold mapping because it's a disaster no matter what you do. Okay, there's normal mapping. Normal mapping is great if you have a simple shape. Like, say you made a skirt and you used a polygon cone to make the skirt. Normal mapping is awesome. Not the best, but it's awesome. Normal mapping on something like this, you get the shape of the mesh. You come over here and you look at this. Around here it looks okay, but you can see, oh, come back. Well, you can see from here how stretched out it is. I mean, right here it's bad. It looks like it's broken. It's not broken, it's just, this is the way it's going to stretch. So this is a bad option for this. It would be a complete headache once you start to texture. So at Control Z, get rid of that. Now, the one that I would use, which I find is the best for mapping, is over here. This is your pelt map. Tick pelt. This little box opens up and you get this sample over here. If you hit start pelt, it's going to start to unravel essentially. And once that's done, which it's pretty quick to pelt, you have to relax it. This can take, depending on how big your mesh is, how many vertices and polygons you have, this could take a while. And sometimes you'll even see it spinning. But this is a pretty decent mesh. It doesn't have too many polygons and vertices for this tool to sort out, and it's got nice clean lines. So you just let it run until it looks like it's not doing anymore. And I can tell you right now, I don't see the borders expanding really. Things are going to keep moving, but it's done. So you come down and you hit commit. Now, when you look at your checkers, everything looks fairly even. Obviously, you know, up here, things are going to curve around, but they're not warped. The warping is the worst part. Now, the only thing you really have to contend with here is where the mesh curves right here. That's easy enough to deal with. If you're really good at texturing, then you would look at this and say, no big deal, I got this, it's in the bag. So for this particular mesh, pelt mapping is the best map to use. And you would just then go, sorry, I keep wanting to do it from there. You're going to go ahead and select a polygon off of there, expand it to seam, and do the same process. Start your pelt. That's good. Start your relax. Let it run till it doesn't look like it's doing anything else. This one's going to take a little longer, it looks like. I can see some things are still shifting around on the borders. Also, one thing to note when you're pelting, let go of your mouse and don't touch anything, because the moment you touch your mouse and move it, it's automatically going to stop pelting, or stop relaxing, I mean. And then you have to start over with the start pelt and then start relax. Okay, now it's not moving much anymore, so I'm going to hit commit. Now we have the two sides pelted. As you can see, this side, because it's the same UV essentially, it's going to map the same way. And those look really good. I would texture with this. I would get this into Photoshop and I would be happy working with this. Okay. We got to get these lined up. They have to be resized because they have to fit in this little box back here. So, because this edge right here and this edge right here are this most visible seam down the front of the face. Oops. It's the mouse again being oversensitive. These two areas you actually want to match up as best as you can. So I'm going to rotate this. And then I'm going to rotate this one. Now they're curved, so I can't get them actually to match up to each other. That's something that, you know, I'm going to have to fix when I get into Photoshop. I'm going to have to adjust my textures to meet up manually. But I'm giving myself a head start here. I'm going to get this as close to level down at this bottom. And that looks pretty good. I mean, I can't control that, like I said. Actually, I could, but it might warp the mesh. So let's do this. I'm going to go down here to the points. If I select this point, you're going to see this highlights in blue up here. I can, oh, is it not going to do it? Let's see this. I might have to select it. Now it doesn't want to do it. Sometimes this works wonderfully and sometimes it doesn't work at all. Let's try the second one, see if we can do it there. No, okay, it's not going to do it. So even if I did do that, there's a possibility that it stretches this, and then when you get over here to your map, it's all stretched across. So, no biggie. I mean, when I get into Photoshop, I can fix this. I can make this look even with this. But getting it lined up so you can do that is the best practice. Now, with all these pieces, the rest of the face parts, I could do the same thing. They're already separated though, so go back down here, click these pieces. Okay, so if I click on that, it looks like I've selected that whole thing. These are actually, unlike the head mesh, these are all separate here, and they're just laying on top of each other. As you can see, you'll see the green and the white underneath. This is the eyebrow, I believe. So this is one side of the face, this is the other. I'm actually going to move that up. They should actually be lined up better. There we go. So now you don't see it. We can see the one I selected is the one for the, let's turn around, that is the left side of the face. My right, his left. If I drag and select that area, both highlight. Now if you wanted to do your map where you had one side, like say, what side do you want to go? This side right here, his left. If you wanted his left just on that side of the map, his right, oops, I didn't want to do that, his right on this side of the map, so you see a mirror on each side. You could do that. You'd have to move everything, make sure they're all even across, but when you get into Photoshop, that just gives you more texturing work to do. Right now, the way these are set up, see these are his eyebrows. I believe this is the back of his ear. See, it selects both backs. This is the front of his ear. There you go. This is, I think, the top of his snout. Yes. See if I, oh, that one's all put together. So this one would have to have new UVs written. Where you go down the center, mirror it. But right now, as it stands, like I said, for Photoshop, this is perfect. And I can see where his nose is. This right here is the bottom of his mouth. This right here are the eyes. So right now this is ideal. This setup is great because when you get into Photoshop, you just have to make one texture for each of those pieces. Since it's overlaid, when you go to add the texture path, it automatically knows, hey, this is an ear, but the other side of the ear is under there as well. So I'm going to put the texture on both. It's a great option. But if you want to torture yourself, you can go through and separate all that, put one half of his face on one side, the other half on the other side. You know, that's great if you like that kind of torture. I don't. When I get to texturing, I want it to be as seamless as possible. So I'm going to resize this and move everything in the map. Now, if you watch tutorials, they'll tell you to hit this option down here, which is pack normalize. Oh, sorry, that didn't come out right. Okay. With nothing selected, you hit pack normalize. Now, pack normalize is great sometimes, but it's just moved things all over the place. It's separated everything. I don't want to deal with that. So I always manually place my UVs. This way I get it exactly how I want. If I want two halves of something next to each other, they're going to be there. And this way I can resize things the way I want. First of all, we have to get all these pieces moved into a way that they're not going to conflict with that head. So we're going to move bottom and top snout over here. Move the eyebrow over a little, and we're going to take the eye with it. This should be good. I'm going to take the one ear part down here. Actually, let's do this better. Oops. Let me select both. Okay, so I'm going to move that back over there. Eye right there. We're going to make space. The snout down here. Okay. You can always move stuff again. Let's move this down. Okay. All this has to fit in this box, obviously. So you're gonna right click, hit scale. To make it larger, you hold down the left mouse button and drag upward. To make it smaller, you drag down. It's pretty self-explanatory. Okay, so now we're in the borders here. butter. Come on. Move for me. Okay. It's getting close to see we're not over the edge. We're not over the edge. This is good. I would leave the map this way. This is what I would work with, especially if I wanted these two parts mirrored like that instead of on top of each other. Of course, leaving them like this gives us the best option with the way we did the pelt. But, see, our pelt still looks good. You could actually put these back on top of each other. You would just select the one, mirror it, and then drag it back on top of there. Make sure you get it lined up. Let's get in close here. Line it up. It's not perfect, but this way, yeah, no, actually that wouldn't be great because one side curves more through here. So go back to that mirrored look. So manually excuse me, that was a mumble. Manually mapping your UV lines, your seams, whatever you want to call it, gives you a little more control over how your final texturing is going to work. I recommend doing manual UVs anytime you can. Now also, because like I said, I'm not a person who does tutorials, there's a lot I could have skipped. I do recommend watching Nightasy tutorials on YouTube. That's Nightasy. He has a whole series of videos just devoted for modding through a 3DS for Skyrim. And they're fantastic. There's like 70 some videos and they're very in depth and he goes at a slow pace. I am not a paced person. I talk fast, so I don't think I'm great for this. But this was a request, and I felt obliged to share this information with someone. So that is the basics of manual UV mapping. If you have any questions, please put them in the comments below. Good luck if you're starting out on modding. It's not as daunting as it seems. I mean, there are some aspects that are. I won't lie. Some parts of it are hard, but the basics are very easy. And like I said, you can learn all those through Nightasy's videos on YouTube. He is a good start for a lot of your basics on why and why not, and absolutely how to get started. And he gives you links to all the programs you need, which is really great. Again, if you have any questions, put them in the comments. This is Vishasar. Thank you for watching, and I hope this tutorial was helpful in some way.